Hey, what's up guys, John here. The Galveston, Texas bridge was just struck, creating a massive oil spill and a partial collapse.
Barge has hit a causeway near Galveston. It caused a piece of the bridge to actually fall.
The Pelican Island Causeway in Galveston is shut down after it was hit by a barge.
A bridge in Galveston, Texas is closed after a barge collided with it on Wednesday.
This is going to be a major issue for America when you couple this scenario with what just happened 6 weeks ago with the Francis Scott Key Bridge having collapsed. That on top of the Red Sea being disrupted, Suez Canal, and the Panama Canal. A lot of goods and freight is basically being halted, and some of this is getting rerouted all the way to the West Coast. What we're going to see is increased costs being pushed on the consumers, a more expensive world, a more chaotic world, and this is likely going to be hitting around Q4 of this year. We all need to be prepared for this. They say inflation is going to be 2%, 3%, 4%. They're not taking into consideration all of the disruption that's unfolding right now in our world. And on this video, I'm going to break it down for you. I think we're walking into something really, really big here. I mean, what are the odds, right? I'm going to break this down for you and show you exactly what I believe is going to happen next and what you can do right now to position yourself for it. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube will share the content, educate more people about what's going on in America's economy. And if you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for what I believe is going to be a much tighter lending environment and a much more chaotic type of world, one in which lenders are going to be looking at borrowers very differently. They're going to be looking at borrowers based on, is this person of high quality on paper? Do they offer very limited risk? If the answer is yes, that person is actually going to get the loan. If the answer is no, they have a history of defaulting and not paying back their bills, as the world gets harder, these banks are going to look to write off that risk and say no to those applicants. The same thing happened in 2008. So if you have any late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, anything like that in your credit report, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. You can click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow. Take a look at this video. This is pretty shocking. This situation that in 895,000 views came out an hour and a half ago, probably over 900,000 views already, 920,000 views, about an hour and a half. Now, this bridge, this is the only Galveston incorporated in 1839, being the only deep water port between New Orleans and Tampico, Mexico. Galveston supplied Texas and the western United States with essential goods that fueled development of the entire nation. It's a pretty important port, and the bridge. And so when you look at this scenario and you look at what they're saying it's causing damage and an oil spill, right? Came out 1 hour ago. A barge has collided with the Pelican Island Causeway in Galveston, Texas, damaging the bridge and closing the roadway to vehicular traffic and causing an oil spill. The collision occurred around 10 a.m. local time. Galveston officials said in a new release that there has been no reported injuries. Video footage obtained by CBS shows that part of the train trestle that runs along the bridge has collapsed. Now, this scenario, they're saying that the barge has the capacity of about 30,000 gallons. This scenario is it's very, very shocking because there's some things that are happening in the background that nobody else is connecting the dots on, like the development of these bridges that are falling down that are going to be nearly impossible to facilitate. And so this disruption is not going to be something temporary. We're going to be walking into a scenario where you have 330 million Americans that want the same goods and services that are accustomed to buying. And as those goods and services get harder and harder to obtain, there's going to be less dollars chasing them, or more dollars chasing them, and less people available to actually pay. And so prices are going to continue to go up. Supply and demand, traditional economics 101. And so this unfolded 2 days ago that this bridge is basically blown up now. And what they're saying here is for the Red Sea, this is the shipping industry has settled into a new normal with routes avoiding the Red Sea. So they're avoiding the Red Sea. You have Time Magazine coming out with this in January, saying that it's the impact of avoiding Panama and the Suez Canal. And what they're saying is that they are looking for alternative course shippers with New York bound goods from the Chinese port of Shanghai can dock in LA and truck their wares across the US instead. So this actually works just like what they said with Baltimore. They said Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge, they want to reroute to the West Coast. Well, Time Magazine was saying this, in January, a few months before that whole thing will even happen, right? They're saying that, it makes more sense to go to the West Coast and go through LA. But you have to think about this. If you're buying water, you're buying, tires for your car, and you live in New York City, and that shipper is shipping directly from China, directly to New York City, and you buy them right from your tire store. Well, it's going to be, X. But if that shipper has to ship them to LA, and then they have to hire a trucker to drive it 2,800 miles or 3,000 miles across the country, well, they're going to factor that into the cost in which they sell you these goods, those tires, right? And so the same thing is going to be applying over the next year or so. We're likely going to see inflation continue to get worse. And Jerome Powell was very, very clear, saying he will only cut interest rates if inflation gets back to 2%. And so everything around us is inflationary. So how can inflation go back to 2%? I don't think it's going to. Instead, I think we're going to see inflation get worse and interest rates staying where they are now or possibly going higher in the short term. Now, it gets crazier because this scenario, they said that, with U.S. importers increasingly shifting to West Coast ports, it turns experiences their own backup. You'll get a vicious feedback loop. And they said here that the bridge collapse, nevertheless, is likely to have an outsized impact on the region economy and around Baltimore and the businesses that rely on shipments of steel and cars that come through the port. So you're going to see a disruption with steel. And then they also say that in the Baltimore area, if you're in the construction business and you haven't piled up enough steel because of high interest rates, there's a good chance you're going to run out of steel. Well, as that happened, they just put a tariff on steel from 0 to 7.5% all the way to 25%. So think about this. What is this going to mean? You're going to have a lot more people chasing steel, and there's already tariffs on it. Prices are going to be going up, getting pushed back onto U.S. consumers, pushing prices even higher. And so there's also, tariffs across the board here. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. They said Americans should expect shortages, said Ryan Peterson, CEO of supply chain management at company Flexport. He said the accident would have significant repercussions for ocean container shipping and East Coast trucking logistics. It's not just the Port of Baltimore that's going to be impacted. Peterson was working with his team Tuesday to reroute about 800 shipping containers currently making their way to the Port of Baltimore. Flexport had 2 containers aboard the Dolly. One was filled with a donated playground headed to Zambia. It's a scramble because each of those containers has a new journey to clear customs. You got to get a different truck to pick up a different port. It creates a whole lot of downstream work. Peterson said the attacks on the cargo ship in the Red Sea already forced traffic away from the Suez Canal and increased congestion in the Panama Canal. With the U.S. importers increasingly shifting to the West Coast, ports that in turn, many experience their own backups. You get this vicious feedback loop. The use of trucks as an alternative to shipping goods will cause traffic backups in the U.S. thoroughfares. The East Coast I-95 corridor is going to be a real disaster. So my prediction is we are going to see shortages in America, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And I believe it's going to happen in Q4, possibly Q1 of next year. We're going to continue to see things, get worse every single month. And if you thought inflation was bad the last couple of years, it's looking like it's going to get worse. So I would do everything. Look, here's one way to look at things. If you know you're going to need something, maybe it's toothpaste, maybe it's socks or shoes, I would bet that it's likely going to cost more in the next 6 months to a year, or maybe less than that. And so if you have the money and you're intending to buy those shoes anyway, the way I'd look at it is it's a return on investment. Maybe it goes up 5%, 10%, 12%. If it's in the, you're going to have to make the purchase in the next 6 months, it's pretty solid investment. Worst case scenario, you're going to buy it for the same price you would have bought it for today. I'm not saying to go out there and stock up and do anything like that. I'm just simply saying if you're going to make the purchase anyway, and it's looking like things are going to get more and more expensive, it might make sense to buy it before things go up. What do you think about this entire situation? Let's have a conversation about this below. I think things in America are about to change in a very, very, very big way. If you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for funding, maybe to invest in distressed real estate, to get a business loan, to maybe buy a distressed business. We'd love to help fix your credit if you have any credit issues at all. If you have a late payment, a medical bill, a charge-off, foreclosure, bankruptcy, repossession, any issue at all like that in your credit report, go to greatcreditfast.com, click the link in the description just below this video, schedule a free call for tomorrow, and I'll catch you next video.